We talk about a lot of different cars here on Muscle Car of the Week, and sometimes people say, hey, where did that car get its name, right? Why is it called what it's called? So today we thought we'd look at 5 or so of some of the most popular muscle cars and investigate where did they get their name. And the first one we're going to start with is this guy right here, the Camaro Z28. So the word Camaro was kind of a made-up word, loosely in French. I think it means comrade or my little friend or some kind of thing. We're not focusing on that so much, but Z28, what does that mean? Well, Chevrolet had what they called regular production option codes, or RPOs. And as they would develop a different option for a car, every option had a code. Well, when it came time to develop a car that would be legal to race in SCCA Trans Am racing, they named an RPO code for the entire car, right? So it's a Camaro, but RPO Z28 was a package that consisted of a whole bunch of high-performance options bundled together to create a particular car. And as the engineers were developing the car, they were adding really cool stuff like the 302 cubic inch V8, power disc brakes, bigger sway bar, 15-inch wheels, a special air intake. They put stripes on it. And they got to the end and they said, okay, well, RPO Z28 has all this cool stuff. What are we going to call the car, right? Now, routinely, they would start high performance options off with the letter Z. You might be familiar with the aluminum 427 called the ZL1. But nobody really came up with a good name for this special high-performance Trans Am version of the Camaro, so they just kept the RPO code and called it Z28. And to my knowledge, I don't think any other car kept its working title RPO code as the actual name. But there have been a few since. Later on, Pontiac did the WS6 Trans Am, which was the suspension package added to a Trans Am to create that name. This 69 Camaro actually is a real Z28 that we're putting back together in our shop. Do you know of any other cars that kept the RPO code in the name? Leave them in the comments. Next up, the Pontiac GTO. Many people consider this the father of all muscle cars. The whole philosophy behind the GTO was to take a mid-size two-door family car that was fairly lightweight and stuff the biggest engine they could under the hood. And that's exactly what John DeLorean and his team did back in '64 when they took a 389 and put it in a slightly modified Pontiac Tempest. But where did the name GTO come from? Well, I'll tell you what it does not mean. It is not the Grand Touring option. It does not stand for gas, tires, and oil. And it definitely does not mean go to Oldsmobile. It stands for Gran Turismo Omologato, which was taken directly from the Ferrari 250 GTO. And what it means is a homologation car. So the Ferrari 250 GTO was certified as a race car in a production version. So that's what the homologation meant. It meant that this car was true to be able to race, even as a factory production version. Now, was the Pontiac GTO true to race? Well, it certainly did on streets and on drag strips, and started the whole muscle car thing. The Pontiac GTO wasn't really named after an animal, although there were some animal connections involved along the way. Pontiac called their engines Tiger Power, so you got the tiger on one side, but the general public took GTO and turned it into the word goat. So I don't know, is it a cat or a goat? You tell me. So the next muscle car name we're looking at is the Buick GSX, another 3-letter combination. Originally, it was known as the Buick Gran Sport, and that's G-R-A-N with no D. So what's the difference between Gran and Grand, right? Well, Gran refers to quality, like something that's exceptional or great. Grand with a D refers to size or age, right? So you have grandfather, but you have a Gran Sport. So Buick wasn't selling this as a big car, they were selling it as an exceptional car. And eventually they shortened Gran Sport down to GS. But for 1970, they really kind of went off the rails for regular Buick style and came up with the GSX. And the X kind of stood for experimental. And this really was an experiment for Buick because these cars only came in two colors, Saturn yellow and Apollo white, and they were covered in stripes, and it had a rear spoiler, and it had a chin spoiler in the front, and a pair of scoops in the hood. So it was really an experiment to see if people would buy them, basically. The GSX was a phenomenally cool performance car. They didn't make very many of them, but now you know where the GSX came from. It was the Gran Sport Experimental. Next up, we've got the Plymouth GTX. Now the GTX is kind of an upscaled, fancier version of the Plymouth Roadrunner. It's the same basic platform, but the GTX added some luxury items inside the car, and it also added a base 440 over the regular Roadrunner's 383. So where did the name come from? Well, again, GT always refers to that grand touring type of car that was popular in Europe, but when you put an X after it, it becomes the International Man of Mystery, right? So by adding the X, they elevated what a GT was, kind of the same way they elevated what a Roadrunner was by building the GTX. With that base 440 under the hood, or the optional 426 Hemi, not a lot of people wanted to mess with the GTX. In fact, some people called these the Great Tiger Exterminator. The next name we're looking at is the Oldsmobile 442. And that's right, it's not 442, because the 442 refers to three distinct things. The 442 was originally an outgrowth of the police car package available on the Oldsmobile Cutlass called the B09. But they looked at the car and said, we want to make a sporty, high-performance version to compete with that new GTO. So they called it the 442, named after the 4-barrel carburetor, the 4-speed transmission, and the dual exhaust. What happens when the car was all of a sudden available with a 3-speed automatic? Well, they didn't rename it the 432. They kept the 442, but the second 4 became named after the 400 cubic inch V8 under the hood. And the 442 name stuck forever. So a very cool muscle car with another great name with a pretty cool story. The last car we're looking at is truly a muscle car icon, Ford Mustang. Now this one can have a whole bunch of different names. First of all, it's a Ford, then it's a Mustang. Well, where did the name Mustang come from? Some people thought it was because of the iconic World War II aircraft, the P-51 Mustang, which makes a lot of sense. That was a very fast and nimble, high-performance airplane, actually flown by the guys like Chuck Yeager in World War II. But I think the P-51 Mustang was actually named after the horse, the wild Mustang that you find running around in the great western plains of the United States. And that is where the car was named after. The horse is a symbol of freedom and speed and power and good looks. So that's why we see the horse emblem in the grille and not the airplane. But when we dig a little deeper into this particular car, this is a 1969 Ford Mustang Mach 1 Cobra jet. It's got a lot of names. The Mach 1 package is an appearance and comfort package that got you the blacked out hood with the scoop, the reflective stripes on the side, sport mirrors, the cool stripe on the seat. And the term Mach 1 refers to the speed of sound at sea level. So again, Mach 1 is fast, this must be a fast car. And you know it's a fast car because it's powered by a Cobra Jet 428. So here's more names, Cobra Jet. So now the engine is named after a snake. So we have a horse Mustang with a snake of an engine and a jet powered, it all gets pretty crazy. So of all of our great muscle car names, I think the Mustang Mach 1 428 Cobra Jet is definitely one for the books. If you like this kind of stuff, you can find features on cars like this and all of them that we featured on this episode, just go to musclecaroftheweek.com or any of our social or YouTube channels to see in-depth episodes on all of them. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll come back with something even more interesting than these cars next time on Muscle Car of the Week.